Should all games have an easy mode?
Why?
So
So everybody can play it?
so it's accessible to a broader audience. So I think
I'm sorry.
s-
Does baseball have an easy mode?
so
Is that what they consider the T?
I see pros and cons. I see both sides for this argument. I see having an easy mode for games like the soulsbourne games like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Lies of P, like all of those like games that are notoriously just like really really hard. For someone that doesn't, for someone that wants to play those kinds of games, but doesn't want to or doesn't really have like the time commitment that they could put into those kinds of games.
Let me stop you real quick so I understand the question. Because the way I'm understanding it is very different than the way you might be trying to convey it. When you say should games have an easy mode,
Mm-hmm.
are you referring to a story mode?
I'm referring
Like that
to
concept where it's like
I'm referring to
you
single player games. I'm not referring to like any multiplayer
right, but
type of game.
in certain games they call it a story mode difficulty where it's like, hey, you can go
Yeah,
through and do the
yeah.
story and you're not going to die and
Yes, like where like there are some games where it's like, how do you want your experience to be? Do you want to just sit back and enjoy the story, or do you want a bit of a challenge, or do you want to be beaten down into a pulp?
see I see that as different than an easy mode where it's like
Well,
you're
it's
presenting the story, you're allowing the player to progress through it so they can enjoy that aspect of the game as opposed to the challenging aspect of the game versus like an easy mode where it's like, oh, was that too hard? Little baby think the game is too hard?
so like that a big genre and a big thing now is just like playing a game at its hardest difficulty and just getting obliterated. But then when you get past the points and you get to like advance the story or get to the next part of the game, like it's super rewarding. But for like I can see like those notoriously hard games, Sekiro, like all of those types of games, like the Soulsborne types of games, like I think giving them like an easy mode would be nice for two reasons. So for one reason, it gives the person that's playing it like a nice just sit back, enjoy the game. I don't have to worry about getting obliterated right off the bat and just I can like kind of get a hang of things. Two, to I just kind of touched on it there is like you get a hold of the game so that way you can then play it on like the normal difficulty. But the other side of the coin is like those games aren't made for the people and they're not meant to be easy. Like part of the experience of those games and like that whole part of it is to have it be super super difficult. So like I get both sides because one, I'm a guy that I don't have time to sit down and like it does frustrate me to play like for a week straight and I haven't beaten this boss because it's just so damn hard.
It has nothing to do with the difficulty.
So it's like I can see both sides.
I take a completely different approach on this.
Which is why we have good conversations.
I feel like I played Dark Souls
See,
for 5 minutes.
the only game of that
Actually,
nature
Dark Souls 2, I think.
that I've played is Bloodborne. That's the only like, and I haven't even beaten Bloodborne.
I downloaded Bloodborne. No. And here's the thing. Or like, if I'm a developer for a game, granted, you know my background. You know I've been in software development, so I like understand To a degree, where
Yeah.
that's what that's like. If I'm a game developer and I'm building this game, and we're real excited about it, and it's this thrilling game, and oh, it's so hard. People are really going to have a challenge with it. They're going to play it for hours trying to get through this. My first thought is how many people aren't going to play this because it's so hard. Like
Yeah.
once people figure that out. And then my second thought is, wow, if all those people don't play it, that means all those people don't buy it. And if those people don't buy it, I don't get their money.
So I can see that part of it, but with me being into what I'm into, like I'm very into like in tune, I should say, with like the streaming culture, the YouTube gaming culture, like as a whole, and it's actually surprisingly the complete opposite of what you said. Like those games are good games for people to stream. So like Elden Ring, for example, came out at probably the most perfect time because that was during like the lockdowns and stuff. Like everybody played Elden Ring. And like it's not the most difficult of those types of games, but everybody played that game. I know people that have never touched a game other than multiplayer games like Fortnite and Call of Duty. Those people went and played Elden Ring. And they were like, "Oh yeah, have you heard of Elden Ring?" I'm like, "Well, one, how do you know of Elden Ring? Like you only play Fortnite. What do
Okay.
you?"
That's one instance that, like,
So, but for example, like these massive streamers play these games and it's fun to watch. It's a fun game to watch them play because these people do it for a living. They play games for a living. So they have
right,
all the time in the world to dedicate to play these types of games, which naturally you're just going to understand them from a different perspective than what I understand these games at.
right,
So when you get on stream and no matter who it is, like when these games come out and gain massive popularity, the most massive streamers of all time are covering these games. Like Asmongold, I think Shroud even did it. Doctor Disrespect, like I think he even played these types of games. Like these streamers that are on just another level of popularity are playing these types of games. Everybody just wants to play. Everyone's going to play that game. It's the same, it's when Fortnite was huge. Like Ninja, like everybody wanted to play Fortnite because everybody wanted to be the next Ninja. Same with Call of Duty. Everyone wants to be the next Dr. Disrespect or Tim the Tatman or Nick Merckx or what have you. Like these guys that are just having like 30, 40, 50,000 people watching them every time they stream. They play like if they're playing one of these games, the people are going to follow and they're going to want to buy these games. Like the influence of YouTube culture and streaming culture that the influence that those two things have on the gaming market as a whole is insane. And I don't think you really understand it because you're an outside perspective in that regard.
oh no, I see where you're coming from. You put out this hard game, one of the streamers picks it up, they start pushing it, people see you playing it, they want to play it, they go buy it. I see the concept. I don't know that it's necessarily landing because you look at the sales numbers on like the different consoles, and Grand Theft Auto is probably the easiest game you can play on PlayStation. It's number one
Yeah.
for not just PS4 but for PS3. Horizon's up there, Last of Us, like most of the games that I wouldn't really consider particularly hard seem to have higher sales numbers.
Yes,
I
and
see where you're saying that, like with
well,
it being a novel
if
concept.
if you're looking at the PS4 as a console and you're looking at like some of the most popular games for the console, I think there's at least 5 or 6 Soulsbourne games that are like in that top. There's Bloodborne, which if you ask anybody that owns a PS4 or PS5, like what some of their top games are, that game's going to be in there. I've heard so many people talking about it.
Probably.
Uh, Demon Souls. That's another one that was huge. It got a remake. It originally released for PS3, and it got a full blown remake for PS5, and I think it launched when the PS5 launched. But that was a huge game when it came out, massive. And I don't think it's like considered people's favorites, but if you're talking about like these difficult, notoriously like Soulsbourne games, that's definitely it's in the name, Demon Souls. Um, Dark Souls 3 released. That's another one that was huge, massive. I just watched a streamer that I watched play it, Ryukar. He's a Mario guy, but he plays other games. But he just did and there was another guy that just did a playthrough of that. Lies of P, surprisingly enough, like when that came out, that wasn't even like I don't think considered a AAA title. That was just like a game from like a different developer that's not from the developers of the main Soulsborne like games, but that game was massive. I watched Asmongold play it. I watched a couple other streamers play it, and like I think it got pretty successful for it not being a AAA title.
Yeah, I
But then
mean,
you have Sekiro. Like that game was huge. Like there's so many of these games that like when I look at like some of the best games for PS4 and PS5, like these titles are on it. I avoid them because I just don't have the time to sink into these games. I just don't. And I'm not a terrible like gamer, but I'm not what I was.
right. No, I mean, the question was, should they have an easy mode? And, the point that I was trying to put forward was for developers, if it's about pride and building the hardest thing that ever came out of your studio and you don't care whether you get to make another game,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead. But as a business owner, adding an easy mode is going to make my game more apt for consumption by more people, therefore opening doors to, potential revenue that wasn't or maybe wasn't previously realized.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's an easy mode doesn't mean there's not a hard mode. So people are still going to play it on hard if they
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
But maybe somebody plays it on easy because when you're building a game, there's so many things that can constrain your audience. Like Bloodborne. Are you going to hand that to a 7-year-old?
Yeah.
You just eliminated literally everybody under the age of 13, maybe 17, depending upon what ESRB rated it. And granted, some parents won't listen to that, but
No one follows
there
that,
is
I
a
don't
lot
think.
of money to be made in that age range.
Yeah,
I hate,
but I mean
I
when
don't
you're
capitalize kids like that, but
when you're 17 and 18 though, like you do have a lot of time available, like depending, like, but normally like when I was 17 and 18, like I had a lot of time to play games. It's what
I
I
had
was
no time.
doing.
I had no time. I was busy.
So like for me, like if I would have played those kinds of games at that age, like I probably would have like put time into those for sure. But for me, I think that there should be a consideration.
You probably should have put time into those.
Well, I don't have the time to put into them now because they didn't come out when I was 17 or 18. Um, I think that there's an argument to be had to put an easy mode into these like notoriously hard games, but I also see why there shouldn't be an easy mode because like what is a video game? It is a piece of art. Arguably, it is a piece of art. It is an experience. Part of the experience is to get past these things that are insanely hard, like the reward system, like building your character and like trying these different things for something that works because when you do go into these games, part of it is going in blind, not knowing anything. And in the age of the internet, if I wanted to play Bloodborne or if I wanted to play Demon Souls or Elden Ring, I can look up a guide that will give me like, hey, do this, do this, do this, put all of your effort into these stats, and then you can just one shot or two shot these bosses. And I can probably breeze through these types of games, which but there's no fun in that.
So do this. My best idea all week. Add an easy mode, an easy setting, where you can select the setting. We'll say, for instance, in Bloodborne. You go in. When you select easy mode, you hit X, and it brings up a pop-up that says, "Are you a little bitch?" And then you can go back and reselect hard.
I'm for sure clipping that for a short. When you go into Bloodborne and you push it and it'll be like, "Are you a little bitch? You little bitch boy?"
Dude, I feel like the developers are already doing that when they make it so damn hard in the first place. Like, there's a game, I forget what game I was playing. It was literally single shots that was just done. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Fuck this, I'm out. I damn near put my controller through my TV.
Yeah, I think there's an argument, but I do see, like, you know, as a person who likes even like video games that I haven't played or like I don't particularly like I see the value in them. So like I can see both sides. What do you guys think? Should there be an easy mode in like notoriously hard games, or am I just a little bitch? I mean,
dude, I think that's a great idea. If that happened in a game, I would probably go Venmo the developer just for adding that.